The assassin's energy bolt sizzled through the air, its violet glow illuminating the grand ceremonial chamber. In the 3 seconds it took to cross the room, Lieutenant Rhys Everard made a decision that would alter the course of 2 civilizations. Queen Vexillori of the Thalassian Confederation stood motionless, her iridescent scales reflecting the approaching death. The first diplomatic summit between humans and Thalassians in decades was about to end in catastrophe. Security forces were too far away. The Queen's personal guard, distracted by a deliberate diversion, wouldn't reach her in time. But Rhys could. His military-enhanced muscles propelled him forward with inhuman speed. The Queen's 6 golden eyes widened as the human diplomat, assigned as a mere formality, hurled himself into the path of the energy bolt. The impact lifted Rhys off his feet. Pain beyond imagination coursed through his body as the bolt's energy dispersed through his torso, cooking him from the inside. The ceremonial armor provided by the Thalassian embassy shattered, fragments of precious metal scattering across the polished floor. Through the haze of agony, he heard the pandemonium erupting around him. Security forces converging, diplomats screaming, the would-be assassin being tackled to the ground. But most distinctly, he felt cool, scaled hands cradling his head. "Why would you do this, human?" Queen Vexillori's voice had a musical quality even when strained with shock. Rhys tried to speak, but blood filled his mouth. His vision darkened at the edges. "Bring the royal physician." The Queen's command reverberated through the chamber. "This human shall not die in my presence." Rhys didn't understand the commotion his actions had caused. He was just following protocol. Protect allied dignitaries at all costs. He couldn't know that in Thalassian culture, a life debt was the most sacred bond possible. More binding than any treaty, more solemn than any oath. As consciousness slipped away, the Queen leaned closer. "I am indebted to you, human. By the ancient laws, what is mine is now yours to command." The last thing Rhys saw before darkness claimed him was the impossibly beautiful face of the alien monarch, crowned with jewel-toned sensory frills that now flared in distress. Her ceremonial markings glowed with intensifying bioluminescence, a sign that a royal decree was forthcoming. "Let it be known," she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos, "that this human is now under royal protection. He is to be given every measure to ensure his survival." What Rhys couldn't hear was the rest of her proclamation, that by the ancient laws of her people, she had just bound herself and her empire to the fate of a single human soldier. Across the galaxy, politicians, diplomats, and military strategists would soon be scrambling to understand the implications of what had just occurred. For in saving the Queen's life, Lieutenant Rhys Everard had unwittingly become the most politically important human in the known universe, and the assassin's true employers, watching from the shadows with mounting horror, realized their plan. To sabotage human-Thalassian relations had backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. Part 2. Awakening to a new reality, Rhys awoke to the soft hum of alien medical technology. His chest felt as though it had been torn apart and reassembled, which he would later learn wasn't far from the truth. The ceiling above him pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, an organic monitor displaying his vital signs in a language he couldn't read. "The human awakens," announced a melodious voice. Rhys turned his head to find Queen Vexillori herself seated beside his recovery pod, not surrounded by advisors or guards, but alone, an unprecedented breach of Thalassian royal protocol. "Your Majesty," he croaked, attempting to sit up. Pain lanced through his torso. "Be still," she commanded, placing a 6-fingered hand on his shoulder. "The physician has replaced much of your damaged tissue with bioengineered substitutes. Your recovery is proceeding well, but movement is inadvisable." Rhys settled back, bewildered by the Queen's presence. "How long have I been unconscious?" 7 of your Earth days," she replied, "during which time much has changed." The Queen rose, her height impressive even by Thalassian standards. Her ceremonial armor had been replaced with simpler attire, though the royal regalia still adorned her sensory frills. Rhys noticed the frills pulsated with deep blue light, indicating, though he didn't know it, intense emotional significance. Lieutenant Everard, do you understand what your actions have precipitated? He stared blankly. I see. The Queen's secondary eyelids flickered, their equivalent of a contemplative blink. Among my people, to save a royal life creates a debt that cannot be repaid except through equal measure. This is not merely tradition but encoded in our biochemistry, our neural pathways. I am now bound to you at the most fundamental level. Rhys struggled to process this. Bound. How exactly? In human terms, I belong to you. My resources, my power, my influence, all exist now to serve your will. This is an immutable fact of Thalessian biology. Rhys would have laughed if his chest hadn't hurt so badly. That's absurd. You're the ruler of 12 star systems. 16, she corrected. And yes, it is precisely because of my position that this bond is so significant. The Eternal Council is in disarray. Half believe I should abdicate rather than allow a human to hold sway over our empire. The others insist the ancient laws must be honored, especially in diplomatic crises. Beyond the recovery room's translucent walls, Rhys could now make out armed guards, far more than would be standard for a royal visit to a medical facility. There have been 3 more assassination attempts, the Queen stated matter-of-factly. Not on me, but on you. Who would want me dead? Anyone who fears humans gaining influence over Thalessian affairs? The Vrexian Syndicate, separatist factions within my own government, perhaps even elements within your Earth Alliance unwilling to see power shift so dramatically. The door slid open, revealing Commander Nim Callisto, Rhys's superior officer. Her expression was a mixture of awe and frustration. Everard, somehow you've created the biggest diplomatic incident in human history while being in a coma. Congratulations. She turned to the Queen and bowed deeply. Your Majesty, the Earth Alliance representatives have arrived for the emergency council. Very well, the Queen replied. Looking back at Rhys, she said, Rest now. When you are recovered, we must discuss how you wish to utilize your influence. After she departed, Commander Callisto approached his bedside. What the hell did I do? Rhys whispered. Nothing much, Callisto replied with forced casualness. You just became the effective co-ruler of the most powerful alien empire we've ever encountered. The diplomatic corps is having collective aneurysms, as Rhys closed his eyes, exhaustion reclaiming him. He couldn't help but wonder if taking that energy bolt had been the right decision after all. The Thalessian royal vessel, Luminous Convergence, sliced through hyperspace, its crystalline hull gleaming like a shard of starlight. Within the ship's diplomatic quarters, Rhys stood before a viewing portal, watching the twisted fabric of space-time rush past. His newly healed body still ached, enhanced with Thalessian biotech that had saved his life but left him feeling strangely disconnected from himself. The cybernetic discomfort will fade, said Kyvex, the Queen's chief physician, checking readings on a translucent display that hovered above his wrist. Your human cells are integrating with our technology more efficiently than anticipated. Rhys nodded absently, more concerned with their destination than his recovery. 3 weeks had passed since he'd taken the energy bolt meant for Queen Vexillori, and the political fallout continued to expand like a supernova. We're approaching the Thalessian homeworld, announced Commander Callisto, entering the chamber. As the only other human permitted aboard this vessel, she had become Rhys's unofficial advisor, though her real job was clearly to ensure Earth's interests remained protected in this unprecedented situation. Have you considered the Queen's offer? Callisto asked quietly. Rhys turned from the viewport. To formally accept her life debt in the Ancestral Temple? I'm still not convinced it's the right move. Earth Alliance intelligence believes it's our best option. The Thalessian nobility won't accept your influence unless it's ceremonially acknowledged. Rhys frowned. I didn't ask for influence. I was just doing my job. Nevertheless, you have it, said a melodious voice as Queen Vexillori entered the chamber. Both humans bowed instinctively. The Queen's sensory frills rippled with amber light. Amusement, Rhys had learned. There is no need for such formality between us, Lieutenant Everard. Not when you hold my life in your hands." Callisto excused herself, leaving Rhys alone with the alien monarch. "Your people are uncomfortable with the bond between us," the Queen observed. "They see it as a vulnerability, a potential compromise of your loyalty to Earth." "And your people?" Rhys asked. "They are furious," she replied with startling candor. "A queen bound to a human? Unthinkable. There are whispers of revolution, of declaring me unfit to rule." Rhys felt a weight settle on his shoulders. "Then release me from this bond. Surely there's a way." "There is not." The Queen's frills darkened to deep indigo. "The neurochemical changes are irreversible. I am bound to honor your will, to protect your interests as my own. This is not servitude as humans understand it, but something far more profound." She approached, standing close enough that Rhys could see the intricate patterns within her scales, smell the strange floral scent that emanated from her skin. "But there is more," she continued, her voice lowering. "The assassin who targeted me has been interrogated. They were hired by the Vrexian syndicate but funded by elements within my own government." "And yours?" Rhys stiffened. "That's impossible." "Is it? There are those who believe humans and Thalassians should remain divided. Our union, unexpected though it may be, threatens their agenda." The ship shuddered slightly as it decelerated, dropping out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, the Thalassian homeworld appeared, a magnificent azure sphere wrapped in swirling white clouds and glittering city lights. "This is Theia Prime," said the Queen. "My world. And now, by the ancient laws partially yours to protect," she extended her hand, palm up, revealing an intricately designed pendant. "This royal insignia will mark you as my bonded savior. Once you accept it in the ancestral temple, no Thalassian may harm you without committing treason." Rhys stared at the pendant, understanding the magnitude of the decision before him. He wasn't just a lieutenant anymore. He had become a nexus point in interstellar politics. "If I accept this," he said slowly, "I want something in return." The Queen's frills pulsed with surprise. "The bond already gives you claim to—" "Not for me," Rhys interrupted. "For humanity. For peace between our peoples." For the first time, he saw genuine respect in the Queen's alien eyes. "Very well, Lieutenant. Name your terms." The ancestral temple of Thalassia rose like a monument to impossibility, a structure that seemed to defy conventional architecture, its spiraling towers and crystalline domes capturing and amplifying the light of twin moons. Rhys ascended the EEI, luminous steps beside Queen Vexilori, acutely aware of the historical significance of this moment. No human had ever been permitted within these sacred halls. Behind them processed a mixture of Thalassian nobles, their scales and frills displaying various colors of displeasure, and the small human diplomatic contingent, their faces masks of professional neutrality despite their obvious awe. "The ceremony will begin at lunar convergence," the Queen explained. "When our twin moons align, a rare astronomical event considered auspicious for life-changing bonds." Rhys nodded, adjusting the formal attire provided for him, a hybrid of Thalassian ceremonial robes and Earth Alliance formal uniform, symbolizing his unique position between worlds. The royal pendant hung heavy around his neck, its bioactive components warming against his skin. "And after the ceremony?" he asked quietly. "We implement the terms you requested," she replied, "beginning with joint investigation into the assassination attempt." Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Lord Zivax, head of the Thalassian Eternal Council. His ancient scales had faded to pale silver, but his eyes remained sharp and calculating. "Your Majesty," he began, deliberately ignoring Rhys. "The Council requests final audience before you proceed with this unprecedented action." "The time for debate has passed, Lord Zivax," the Queen replied coolly. "The ceremony proceeds as planned." The old Thalassian's frills flickered with barely suppressed rage. "Then the Council cannot be held responsible for the consequences." As he departed, Commander Callisto moved closer to Rhys. "I don't like this," she murmured. Our intelligence suggests the Council is deeply divided. Half support the Queen, half want you eliminated. Which half is larger? Rhys asked dryly. Before she could answer, a resonant tone echoed through the temple. The twin moons were aligning, visible through the temple's transparent dome. The ceremony began with ancient Thalissian rituals, complex movements, bioluminescent displays, and harmonic vocalizations that human vocal cords could never replicate. Rhys participated where protocol demanded, following instructions he had memorized over the previous days. At the culmination, he and the Queen stood facing each other within a circle of light cast by the converged moons. She extended her hands, palms up, and Rhys placed his hands atop hers as rehearsed. Before these witnesses and beneath the eternal gaze of our ancestors, the Queen proclaimed in the common diplomatic language, I, Vexillori XV, acknowledge the life debt to this human, Lieutenant Rhys Everard of Earth. My life, preserved by his sacrifice, now exists in harmony with his. His enemies are my enemies, his welfare my sacred duty. The pendant at Rhys's throat began to glow, responding to some unseen energy in the temple. Then everything went wrong. A deafening explosion rocked the temple's western wing. Screams and energy weapon discharges echoed through the sacred hall. Royal guards moved with practiced efficiency surrounding the Queen and Rhys. Separatists, shouted the guard captain. They've breached the inner sanctum. Through the chaos, Rhys spotted Lord Zivax watching impassively from an elevated platform. Not surprised, not taking cover. Just waiting. It's a coup, Rhys realized aloud. They're using the ceremony as cover. The Queen's frills flared crimson, with anger and alarm. The ceremony was not completed. Without the final blessing, will I still be recognized as your bonded? Rhys asked urgently. By ancient law, yes, but without ceremonial validation, the more conservative factions will. Another explosion cut her off. Closer this time. We need to leave, Commander Callisto urged, drawing her sidearm. Now! As they retreated through ancient corridors, pursued by what appeared to be Thalissian military forces in non-standard armor, Rhys's mind raced. This wasn't just about him or the Queen anymore. This was the start of a civil war, one that could drag humanity into an interstellar conflict they weren't prepared for. They reached a small antechamber where the Queen pressed her palm against a seemingly ordinary wall. It dissolved, revealing a hidden passage. The royal escape route, she explained, known only to the ruling monarch. As they hurried through the narrow corridor, Rhys caught the Queen's arm. You knew this might happen, he accused. You knew and still brought me here. In the dim light, her golden eyes seemed to glow. I suspected, yes, but I had hoped my people would honor the ancient ways. What aren't you telling? Me? Rhys demanded. The Queen's frills drooped, a sign of deep distress. The assassination attempt was never meant to succeed, Lieutenant. It was a calculated move in a much larger game, one that has been playing out for centuries before your species ever reached the stars. What game? The true reason I needed this, bond with you, she said gravely. Because only with humanity's help can we defeat what's coming. The prophecies speak of darkness between the stars, awakening after millennia of dormancy. My ancestors called them the Void Harvesters. Rhys stared. At her realization dawning, you don't just owe me everything, he said slowly. You need me for something much bigger. Yes, she admitted. And now we must survive long enough to face it together. The emergency shuttle screamed through Thalassia's upper atmosphere, its heat shields glowing orange against the void of space. Inside, Rhys gripped the stabilization harness as the craft shuddered violently. Beside him, Queen Vexillori remained eerily calm, her scaled hands dancing across alien control interfaces. 3 pursuit vessels on intercept trajectory, reported Commander Callisto from the tactical station. Thalassian military configurations but without royal markings. Lord Zivax's loyalists, the Queen confirmed. They will not fire upon us directly, not while I am aboard. Small comfort, Rhys muttered, watching proximity alerts flash across the displays. Where exactly are we heading? The Nexus Archive, replied the Queen. A repository of ancient knowledge hidden in Thalassia's second moon. Few know of its existence, fewer still can access it. The shuttle banked sharply, diving toward the smaller of the twin moons, a cratered barren sphere that appeared utterly lifeless, ma'am. Callisto addressed the Queen with cautious respect. Earth Alliance Command is demanding situation updates. They're detecting the coup attempt from orbital satellites. Tell them nothing yet, Reese interjected before the Queen could respond. All eyes turned to him in surprise. He continued, if Earth gets officially involved now, it becomes an interstellar incident. We need to understand what we're dealing with first. The Queen's frills flickered with approval. Your instincts serve you well, Lieutenant. As they approached the moon's cratered surface, a seemingly solid mountainside shimmered and dispersed, revealing a hidden docking bay carved into the lunar rock. The shuttle slipped inside moments before their pursuers came within weapons range. They will not find us here, the Queen assured them as the entrance resealed, becoming indistinguishable from the surrounding terrain. This facility predates my dynasty. The interior of the Nexus Archive defied expectations. Rather than the crystal and bioluminescence that characterized Thalassian architecture, these halls were constructed of some dark, non-reflective material that seemed to absorb both light and sound. Ancient symbols, unlike any Thalassian script, Reese had studied, crawled across the walls. These markings, he observed, they're not Thalassian. No, confirmed the Queen. They are much older. From those who came before us, those who first warned of the void harvesters. They reached a vast circular chamber dominated by a pulsating column of energy that stretched from floor to ceiling. Around its base sat crystalline data nodes, each humming with stored information. The complete history of our encounters with the harvesters, explained the Queen. Every 17,000 years they emerge from the dark space beyond the galactic rim. They harvest sentient species for purposes we still do not fully understand. And you believe they're returning now? Callisto asked, skepticism evident in her voice. The signs are unmistakable, the Queen replied. Gravimetric anomalies in the outer systems, unexplained disappearances of deep space outposts. The ancient warning systems are activating one by one. She approached one of the data nodes, placing her palm against its surface. It responded to her touch, projecting a three-dimensional star chart showing both Thalassian and human territories. And beyond them, a creeping shadow encroaching from the galactic edge. 3 previous times my ancestors faced this threat. 3 times they barely survived, driving the harvesters back at terrible cost. The records speak of allies, other species who fought alongside them, species that no longer exist. Reese studied the projection, military training kicking in as he analyzed the tactical situation. If this is accurate, both our civilizations are directly in their path. Yes, and this is what Lord Zivax and his conspirators refuse to accept. They believe isolation is our salvation, that by severing all ties with other species, particularly humans, we can somehow hide from the coming storm. Reese felt the weight of the pendant against his chest, understanding dawning. That's why you engineered our meeting. The diplomatic summit, the assassin, not the assassin, the Queen corrected sharply. That was Zivax's addition to the plan. I arranged the summit, yes, hoping to establish human-Thalassian cooperation before revealing the threat. I never intended to form a life bond. But now that it exists, Reese continued, you can use it to bypass the Eternal Council's authority, because whatever you promise me, you must deliver. The Queen's frills darkened with something like shame. Yes, the ancient laws supersede even the Council's power. As my bonded savior, your word becomes my imperative. Commander Callisto had been silent, processing the implications. Now she spoke, her voice hard. So Lieutenant Everard was just a convenient tool? A human you could manipulate into giving your actions legitimacy? The Queen turned to face Reese directly, her golden eyes unblinking. At first, perhaps. But when you took that energy bolt without hesitation, when you were willing to die for a queen you didn't know from a species not your own, I realized you might be more than a tool. You might be exactly what both our peoples need. Before Reese could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. On the star chart, multiple vessels converged on their location. "They've found us," Callisto announced grimly. "Impossible," the Queen insisted. "This facility is undetectable." "Unless," Reese suggested quietly, "someone told them where to look." His hand moved to his chest, fingers wrapping around the royal pendant. "Like a tracking device, perhaps." The Queen's expression confirmed his suspicion. "The pendant, it connects us but also serves as a beacon for the royal guard. Zivax must have accessed its frequency." "Then we don't have much time," Reese said, straightening his shoulders. "And we have a decision to make." The assault on the Nexus archive began with surgical precision. Specialized cutting tools burned through the ancient doors, while quantum disruptors attempted to neutralize the facility's defenses. Inside, Reese, Queen, Vexillori, and Commander Callisto prepared for their last stand. "The archive's inner sanctum has a direct quantum link to the royal flagship," the Queen explained, leading them deeper into the labyrinthine facility. "If we can reach it, we can transmit the harvester data directly to both our governments simultaneously." "Forcing cooperation through shared threat," Reese observed. "Elegant if desperate." "I prefer pragmatic," the Queen replied, her frills pulsing with determination. They reached a sealed vault door inscribed with the same ancient non-Thalessian symbols. The Queen pressed her palm against it, but nothing happened. "The biological verification is failing," she hissed in frustration. "The system must be degraded after millennia of dormancy." Reese touched the royal pendant at his throat. "What about our bond? Could that help?" The Queen's golden eyes widened slightly. "Perhaps. The ancient laws that govern the life bond predate even this facility." "Place your hand beside mine." As Reese complied, he felt the pendant grow warm. A strange sensation, like liquid electricity, flowed from it into his palm and through the door. Ancient mechanisms groaned to life, and the massive portal began to slide open. Behind them, the sounds of battle intensified. Commander Callisto stood guard at the corridor junction, pistol drawn. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster," she called. "We've got company." The inner sanctum contained a single pedestal supporting a crystalline sphere that pulsed with internal light. The Queen approached it reverently. "The quantum nexus," she explained. "It can transmit data instantaneously across any distance, bypassing normal communication limitations." She hesitated, then turned to Reese. "Lieutenant, what I'm about to reveal breaks our most sacred laws. The Nexus doesn't just transmit data, it can transmit consciousness." Reese raised an eyebrow. "You mean like a telepathic connection?" "Far more direct. One consciousness can temporarily inhabit another being, sharing all knowledge and experience instantaneously. My ancestors used this to coordinate during previous harvester invasions." "And you want to use it now," Reese realized. "Between us, it is the only way to ensure both our peoples understand the full scope of the threat. Your leaders will never truly believe unless they experience the harvester memories firsthand." Before Reese could respond, energy blasts erupted from the corridor. Commander Callisto backed into the chamber, returning fire. "They've breached the outer defenses," she shouted. "It's Zivax himself leading them." The Queen placed her hands on the crystalline sphere. "We have no time to debate. Lieutenant, your hand, please." Reese hesitated only a moment before joining her at the pedestal. The moment their hands touched the sphere, his consciousness expanded explosively. Millennia of Thalessian memories flooded his mind, and most terrifyingly, the collective experiences of 3 previous harvester invasions. He saw worlds consumed, species extinguished, and the barely successful desperate alliances that had driven the entities back into dark space. Simultaneously, the Queen experienced the full breadth of human history, our triumphs, failures, resilience, and capacity for both destruction and self-sacrifice. When they broke contact seconds later, both staggered back, forever changed. "It is done," the Queen whispered. "The data is transmitting to both our governments." Lord Zivax and his guards burst into the chamber, weapons raised. The ancient Thalassian's frills flared with rage. "Treason," he roared, "sharing our most sacred secrets with humans." "The only treason," the queen replied calmly, "is denying the truth of what comes. The harvesters care nothing for our political squabbles, Lord Zyvax. They will consume Thalassian and human alike. Better extinction than contamination by lesser species." Zyvax spat, raising his weapon toward Reese. "Break the bond. Now." "You know that's impossible," the queen said. "Then we shall break it the only way remaining." Zyvax's weapon hummed as it charged. What happened next occurred in fractions of a second. The queen moved to shield Reese, just as he lunged to protect her. Commander Callisto fired at Zyvax. The ancient Thalassian discharged his weapon. When the energy dissipated, Reese found himself unharmed. The queen stood before him, a smoking wound in her shoulder. But she lived. On the floor lay Zyvax, Callisto's shot having found its mark. The remaining guards lowered their weapons, confused and uncertain without their leader. "The bond," gasped the queen. "It protected us both. Such a thing has never—" Realization dawned in her golden eyes. The ancient texts spoke of this. The perfect bond, where both parties are willing to die for each other. Not out of obligation, but choice. Through their newly forged mental connection, Reese understood. Their mutual sacrifice had transformed the life debt into something unprecedented, a true partnership between equals. "Your Majesty," one of the guards said, dropping to one knee. "The council signals. They have received the transmission about the harvesters. They request your immediate return to lead the defense preparations." The queen straightened, royal dignity returning despite her injury. "Tell them I come not alone, but with humanity's representative. The time for division is past." As they prepared to depart the Nexus archive, Reese touched the pendant at his throat. No longer a symbol of debt, but of alliance. "So," he said with a wry smile, "about facing an ancient cosmic horror together." The queen's frills rippled with a color Reese now recognized as affectionate amusement. "One crisis at a time, Lieutenant. First, we must convince our peoples that cooperation is not just beneficial but essential for survival." Commander Callisto holstered her weapon. "After what I've just witnessed, I think you'll find humanity surprisingly receptive. Nothing unites like a common enemy." As they emerged from the facility, the twin moons of Thalassia hung overhead, no longer symbols of an alien world, but beacons of a shared future. The Queen's royal vessel descended to retrieve them, its crystalline hull gleaming against the star-filled sky. Reese knew that challenges remained, political, cultural, military, but for the first time he felt genuine hope. In saving the Queen's life, he had inadvertently created the foundation for saving both their civilizations. "I never asked for everything you had to offer," he said quietly to the Queen. "But I'm glad I took that bullet anyway." "As am I, Lieutenant," she replied, her voice carrying the weight of newfound understanding. "As am I." Above them, distant stars twinkled innocently, while beyond the galactic rim, ancient enemies stirred from their long slumber, unaware that their next harvest would meet unprecedented resistance. Two civilizations standing as one, forged in the crucible of sacrifice and bound by something stronger than duty. The human had taken a bullet for her. Now together, they would face the darkness.